Hi, this is Lara at Elliott Wave Gold with your daily analysis for Wednesday, 10th of December. I'm recording the video today, 5 minutes to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I was expecting a continuation of upward movement to see a green candlestick for Wednesday. That's not what happened. We've got sideways movement in a really small range and a small red candlestick on the daily chart. Because we have a red candlestick on the daily chart, that changes the wave count at the hourly chart somewhat. I expect what's most likely is Minuet Wave 3 is extending, and the sideways movement that's showing up on the daily chart is a lower degree second wave correction. So when it's done, we should have a third wave of a third wave of a third wave upwards. When the sideways movement is done, gold should break out to the upward and we should see a clear, strong increase in upward momentum. The midterm target remains the same at 1262. Let's have a look at the daily wave count. Actually, I just need to move everything up a little bit higher for you so you can see that. That's better. At the daily chart level, my wave count sees primary wave 4 over here as a huge regular contracting triangle lasting 54 weeks, showing perfect alternation with the rear running flat of primary 2, which lasted 53 weeks and was very deep. So this is where primary 4 ends and this is where primary 5 begins. I am not confident at all and don't want to publish a wave count which sees primary wave 5 over here, because from this high to this low it just doesn't subdivide well as a 5-wave impulse. I would want to label that 1, 2 would be a single deep zigzag lasting 5 days, 3 it's possible could have ended here, the subdivisions would fit. But 4 is a double zigzag of about an even depth of what you would see 2 as, so there's an adequate alternation. And 5, from this high to this low, has a cursory count of 7. That's corrective. It does not fit as well as a 5-wave impulse as it does as a 3-wave zigzag. However, when we see a 5-wave impulse complete down here, there are some great Fibonacci relationships in it. So I expect that primary 5 was not over here, and the only intermediate wave 1 within primary 5 is complete here, and we're seeing an expanded flat correction unfold for intermediate wave 2. Within intermediate wave 1, we have a leading contracting diagonal for minor 1, a deep zigzag for minor 2. Second waves following first wave leading diagonals are usually quite deep. This one lasts a Fibonacci 5 days. Minor 3 has a 1.618 price ratio to minor 1. Minor 4 shows perfect alternation with 2. It's a running contracting triangle and it lasted a Fibonacci 8 days. It has a 1.618 duration to 2, and triangles should be expected to be more time consuming structures than zigzags, so that all has an absolutely perfect fit. And minor wave 5 has a 0.618 Fibonacci ratio to minor wave 1. With all of those great relationships, I am confident that an impulse ends here, and this is where a correction begins. Expanded flat corrections are very common structures. They subdivide 3, 3, 5. The only thing that's uncommon about this one is the length of minor wave B in relation to minor wave A. I think this is 172% the length of minor wave A. That's okay though, it's longer than the maximum common length of 138%, but it's less than the allowable length of twice the length of minor wave A, and I've seen a fair few expanded flats where B is longer than 138% the length of A. Expanded flat corrections are really common. So minor wave C must subdivide as a 5-wave structure, and it's extremely likely to move at least slightly above the end of minor A here to avoid a truncation and a very rare running flat. Within it, we have minute wave 1 as an impulse, minute 2 is a deep double zigzag, and this is where the third wave begins. Within it, we have minuet 1 as a short impulse, minuet 2 another double zigzag. It's like a smaller version, a lower fractal of this one, except within it the structures are slightly different, but it's still a double zigzag. And this is where the middle of the third wave begins. Within it now, I think we have subminuet 1 and now subminuet 2 is showing up on the daily chart. When third waves of gold extend, we do often see all of these subdivisions nice and clear on the daily chart. Here's an example of what I mean. It's not a third wave extension, it's a fifth wave extension, and we see the second and fourth waves within it nice and clear on the daily chart. So I think we're seeing that extension here with minuet wave 3. Subminuet 2 will show up on the daily chart, and then eventually subminuet 4 may also, or should also, show up on the daily chart. I don't have a target for minuet 3 for you because were it to reach equality in length with minuet 1, that would take us above the target for minute 3. So I'm not actually expecting to see minuet 3 exhibit a Fibonacci ratio to 1. When minuet 3 and 4 are complete, I'll add to this target calculation for minute wave 3, so at that point in time it might widen to a small zone or it may change. When minute wave 3, beginning here, is a complete impulse structure, then we'll have another time-consuming sideways consolidation for gold, counterpart fourth wave to the second wave, and then more upward movement on toward the final target. At this stage, the final target remains the same. It's most likely that minus C will take intermediate wave 2 up to the 0.618 Fibonacci ratio of intermediate 1 at 1281. Intermediate 2 may not move beyond the start of intermediate wave 1 above 1345.22, and I'm still confident that this invalidation point won't be passed, because if it were to be passed, we would have to label primary 5, and so cycle A is over right down here, and as I explained, that's somewhat problematic. Let's have a look at the hourly chart, where the end of minute wave 1 up here is this point up here. So yesterday my labelling of this piece of movement was wrong. This is where micro 3 and 4 ended, and this was a sharp extended fifth wave. This is probably subminuet wave 1 over here. I had it previously labelled up here. I think it's over here because this movement here is showing up on the daily chart. So it's either a subminuet degree correction, or, as per my alternate, it's 1 degree higher at minuet degree. It's most likely to be at subminuet degree because minuet 3 is most likely to extend. It's very, very common for third waves to extend. And like I said on the daily chart, when they do that, their second wave and the following fourth wave yet to come will show up nice and clear on the daily chart. We'll have confirmation that the main hourly wave count is correct and the alternate is invalidated below 1221.34. We might not get that though. This second wave correction could even be over now. It could be a very shallow movement, but the C wave within it could most certainly move lower yet. Subminuet 2 may not move beyond the start of 1 below 1186.29. It's a second wave correction within a third wave of a third wave though, so I will actually expect in this instance for this second wave to most likely be brief and shallow. The strong upward pull of the middle of a third wave should force it to be more brief and more shallow than second waves usually are. And it might find really strong support at this aqua blue trend line and the upper edge of the pink channel, both of which are copied over here from the daily chart. So that might force it to be more shallow than it would otherwise be. Alternately, if we just move the degree of labelling within this movement up 1 degree, and we might not have this alternate confirmed, it is actually possible that the sideways movement is minuet 4, and that our third wave is over here, shorter than the first wave, 0.618 the length of this first wave. There's a core Elliott wave rule which states the third wave may never be the shortest. Now that's often misinterpreted to mean that the third wave has to be the longest. That is not what the rule states at all. The third wave can't be the shortest. Sometimes third waves are shorter than the first waves, and when that happens then the following fifth wave is limited to no longer than equality with the third. In this instance that limit would be at 1276. If minuet 4 moves lower, this limit must also move correspondingly lower. Couple of problems with this alternate though which reduce its probability. I would judge it to have at best a 40% probability. This fourth wave correction subdivides as a zigzag, 5, 3, 5, with a triangle for the B wave within it. The second wave correction subdivides as a double zigzag, so they are both of the zigzag family and they are both shallow. In this instance, the single zigzag is really not very time consuming compared to this double zigzag. So for this one, I'd expect it to probably continue sideways. There's almost no room left for it to move into though, Any movement at any stage for any length of time below 1221.34 would invalidate this wave count. Minuet 4 may not move into Minuet Wave 1 price territory. The target remains the same. The overall expectation of more upwards movement is exactly the same. The other thing which reduces the probability of this wave count today is it sees if the third wave is over here, the third wave did not show stronger momentum than the first wave. Occasionally that happens, so I will allow for the possibility that the third wave could actually be over, but it's more likely that it's not, which means it's more likely that the next movement for gold is going to be very strongly upward. That's all for me today with your gold analysis, and I hope all our members are having a most fabulous day.